What drives a person to torch a tree over a pile of leaves? And what truths lie buried beneath the ashes of their rage? In the quiet suburb of Willow Creek, where manicured lawns and picket fences painted a picture of harmony, a storm was brewing. It wasn't the kind that darkened the skies, but one born of human pride, misunderstanding, and a single, fateful spark. This is the story of Karen Whitaker, a woman whose obsession with order spiraled into chaos, and the neighbors who bore the weight of her wrath. Karen Whitaker, a 52-year-old accountant with a penchant for precision, lived at 23 Maple Lane. Her house was a shrine to perfection. Hedges trimmed to geometric exactness, windows gleaming like mirrors, and a lawn so pristine it could have been a golf course. But across the street, at 24 Maple Lane, lived the Hernandez family, whose sprawling oak tree dared to defy Karen's standards. Every autumn, its leaves drifted onto her property, blanketing her driveway in a chaotic mosaic of red and gold. To Karen, those leaves weren't just debris, they were an affront, a personal attack on her carefully curated world. Why can't they rake their own mess? Karen muttered one crisp October morning, sweeping leaves into a pile with furious strokes. Her neighbor, Maria Hernandez, a warm-hearted nurse with 2 young kids, had offered to help clean up, but Karen waved her off with a tight smile. "I'll handle it," she'd said, her tone clipped. Maria, sensing the tension, retreated, unaware of the resentment simmering in Karen's heart. The neighborhood knew Karen as that woman. She was the one who filed complaints about unmowed lawns, reported cars parked an inch over property lines, and once called the city about a dog barking 2 streets away. But beneath her prickly exterior, Karen was lonely. Her husband had left years ago, her son rarely visited, and her life was a checklist of tasks to fill the void. The leaves, to her, were a symbol of everything she couldn't control, a chaos she refused to accept. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in hues of amber, Karen stood on her porch, staring at the oak tree across the street. Its branches swayed mockingly, shedding more leaves onto her driveway. She'd had enough. "If they won't fix it, I will," she whispered, her voice trembling with resolve. She didn't know then that her decision would unravel not just her life but the fragile threads holding the neighborhood together. The next morning, Maria's son, 10-year-old Diego, burst into the kitchen, his eyes wide with panic. "Mom, the tree's on fire." Maria ran outside, her heart pounding, to find flames licking the base of their beloved oak. Neighbors poured from their homes, some grabbing hoses, others shouting for someone to call 911. Karen stood on her porch, arms crossed, her face a mask of defiance. "It's about time someone did something about that mess," she said loudly, as if daring anyone to challenge her. The fire department arrived swiftly, dousing the flames before they could spread to the Hernandez house. But the oak, a century-old giant that had shaded generations, was scorched beyond saving. Maria, clutching Diego and his little sister, Sophia, wept as she watched the blackened branches sag. The crowd murmured, their eyes darting between Karen and the smoldering tree. Whispers of "she did it" rippled through the air, but no one had proof yet. Enter Tom Bradley, a retired firefighter who lived 3 houses down. Tom was the kind of man who noticed things others missed. He'd seen Karen's obsession with her lawn, her late-night pacing on her porch, and the way her eyes narrowed whenever Maria's kids played near her property. That morning, as the fire trucks roared away, Tom lingered by the oak, his gaze fixed on a faint trail of gasoline leading from the tree to the edge of Karen's driveway. He didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, he called the fire marshal, his voice low but firm. "You might want to check this out." The investigation moved quickly. By noon, the fire marshal had found an empty gas can in Karen's garage, its scent unmistakable. When confronted, Karen's composure cracked. "I didn't mean for it to get out of hand," she cried. "I just wanted to teach them a lesson. They never clean up their leaves." Her words echoed through the street, a confession that stunned the neighbors into silence. Maria, still shaken, stared at Karen, not with anger but with a profound sadness. "That tree was my kid's favorite climbing spot," she said softly. It was where we buried their goldfish last summer. Karen's face paled. She hadn't known about the goldfish, or the countless memories woven into the tree's branches. She hadn't thought about Diego's laughter as he swung from its limbs or Sophia's crayon drawings of its leaves. All she'd seen was her own frustration, her own need for control. The fire marshal issued her a citation for arson and property damage. But the real punishment was the weight of her neighbors' gazes, some pitying, some disgusted, all heavy with judgment. But the story doesn't end with Karen's shame. That afternoon, as the neighborhood grappled with the morning's chaos, a new figure emerged. Mrs. Evelyn Carter, an 80-year-old widow who rarely left her house at the end of the street. Known for her reclusive nature, Evelyn had watched the drama unfold from her window. Now, she shuffled toward Maria's yard, her steps slow but deliberate, carrying a small potted oak sapling. "This was meant for my garden," she said, her voice raspy but kind. "But I think it belongs here now." Maria, still reeling, accepted the sapling with trembling hands. Evelyn's gesture was a twist no one saw coming, a quiet act of grace that shifted the narrative from destruction to hope. The neighbors, inspired by Evelyn's kindness, rallied around the Hernandez family. Some brought shovels to plant the sapling, others offered to help rebuild the yard, and a few even apologized for staying silent during Karen's tirades. Evelyn, who had always been a shadow in Willow Creek, became an unexpected beacon, reminding everyone that even in the wake of anger, compassion could take root. Karen, meanwhile, retreated into her house, the citation crumpled in her hand. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at the pristine lawn she'd fought so hard to maintain. But now, it felt empty, sterile, a reflection of the life she'd built around control. She thought of Maria's tears, Diego's fear, and Evelyn's sapling, a symbol of everything she'd failed to nurture. For the first time, Karen wondered if her pursuit of perfection had cost her something far more valuable: connection. Days passed and the neighborhood began to heal. The new sapling stood proudly in the Hernandez yard, surrounded by flowers and notes from neighbors. Maria invited everyone to a planting party, where laughter and music filled the air. Karen watched from her window, an outsider in her own community. She wanted to join them, to apologize, to make amends, but the weight of her actions held her back. She'd burned more than a tree'd burn trust, and rebuilding that would take more than a single gesture. In the end, Karen's story wasn't just about a fire or a citation. It was about the human cost of pride, the fragility of community, and the bittersweet possibility of redemption. Maria's family would move on, their new tree a testament to resilience. Evelyn's quiet act of kindness would ripple through Willow Creek, inspiring small gestures that wove the neighborhood closer together. But for Karen, the ashes of that oak tree would linger, a reminder of the moment she let her anger consume her humanity. The citation was a small price to pay compared to the lesson she'd learned too late. Control is an illusion, but compassion is eternal. As the sun set over Willow Creek, casting long shadows across Karen's perfect lawn, she sat alone, wondering if she'd ever find the courage to plant something new, not in her yard, but in her heart. Nd.